Hello, I have a question for you. Are you curious if you have father or mother wounds? Well, I'm Beth Miller and I am back for another live. I have an incredible guest, my friend Janelle Gorman here, who is an expert in father and mother wounds. But before I let her in, let me introduce myself. I'm Beth Miller. I'm a marriage coach, certified hypnotist, teacher of psychology, and I help women save marriages in 12 weeks. And if you want to learn more, I have a great little guide called 3 Ways to Save Your Marriage. It's in my bio. So now on to the good stuff. Let me introduce my friend Janelle. Janelle is an international father and mother wound expert. She herself has experienced father wounds, immense pain and suffering from her own father wounds, and later discovered that she also had a mother wound. And from this, she has taken her gift, taken this and turned it into a gift, and she now teaches others one-on-one. She also teaches retreats and workshops. I'm just going to invite her in. Let's see here. Maybe request to join Janelle, see if that'll work. She leads retreats and workshops, and she helps others and empowers them so that they can heal their father and mother wounds and set themselves free so they can reclaim their power, break these traumatic cycles, and really live the life they deserve. I'm going to let her in. Janelle, this is a great topic. And here she comes any second.
Hello.
Janelle, I am so excited to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, love?
I'm doing wonderful. We have such a great topic. This is something that I think is really foundational work when it comes to all of things, whether it's your career, you're struggling or feeling stuck in your career, your marriage, your relationships. When you can deal with these wounds, I think it's transformative for your life. You can really, like you said, take your power back and get unstuck.
Totally. I mean, these wounds will literally control, like you said, every aspect of our life or spill into all different areas of our life. And that's why it's so important to really get those wounds under control and that relationship with self so you can live the life you are so worthy of having.
All right, well, let's just jump right into it. Let's just talk about, get the foundational work done. Like, what is a wound? Is it the same as like an inner child wound, a mother and father wound? Tell me about your perspective on this.
So I personally believe that inner child wound and parent wounds definitely are intertwined with one another. I feel a lot of times in society, we look at it as childhood trauma, but childhood trauma, of course, is more than likely stemmed from the parents. It's not intergenerational. So I feel like doing the work of healing these wounds, but also healing the relationship with your inner child, which is what I have a lot of my clients do, it all comes into one.
Yeah,
True.
absolutely. It's totally intertwined. I was going to say, anyone who's joining, feel free to pop any questions in and we'll gladly get to those. Okay, so they're intertwined. Now, how do you start to identify them? Like, you're feeling stuck. How do you know if it's just maybe boundaries that need to be set or if it's an inner child wound? How do you figure out that it's that deep?
Yeah, of course. So what you want to do is you want to definitely be your own observer. I always tell my clients, take yourself out as like a third party. And do you keep finding yourself in similar situations? Maybe you constantly attract emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you have a hard time setting boundaries when you know you want to say yes, but you say no. Or when you want to say no, you say yes because you don't want to feel like that person will not like you anymore. That right there could be stemmed from maybe needing to people please for mom and dad, which oftentimes people pleasers were previously parent pleasers. Maybe it's always wanting to have that validation, so you seek outside for others' approvals. That was a big one for me as well. So really starting to identify and get curious with yourself and why you do certain things. But the biggest indicator of, I would say, mother and father wounds is, do you keep finding yourself in similar patterns? Whether it's maybe you're avoidant of relationships altogether, or maybe you want a relationship so bad that you will cling on to anyone.
Oh, I like how you put that. So our inner child wounds, like what I teach my clients too, it's often when we're doing things that make you feel out of alignment, like you're doing things to please others, like I just said, or you said earlier, but often it doesn't feel good. It drains your energy. That's a really good indicator. If you feel kind of exhausted after talking to someone or doing something for someone, or you feel resentful, you feel some sort of anger, low vibe, often it means you're out of alignment, which may lead to some inner child wounds. But to figure out those parent wounds, it's more relationship based. Is that what you're saying? That it's usually attachment style, whether it's anxious or avoidant attachment. Are you saying that?
It is, yeah, that's a little bit as well. And also looking back, if you're curious if you have a mother or father wound, like looking back to how was the relationship with your mother or father? How did they show love? If they even did show love, if they were even in your life. Because a lot of times those belief systems and belief patterns, as you know, are stemmed from about 0 to 6. I feel like 0 to 7. People like say either 0 to 6, 0 to 7, but either way, it's stemmed from childhood, and we are just replaying those belief systems. And that inner child from when that little boy or little girl didn't get what they needed from mom or dad within that age range, all we're doing is repeating in that belief system
Yeah,
as an
absolutely.
adult.
And it's crazy to think, like when we were that little, we were just sponges. Our brains were in like a theta brainwave state, which is where we're very much in our subconscious. Like you and I right now are talking in our beta state, where we're very much like just analyzing things, talking, discussing. When you're very present in the moment, where you're just like observing things around you, that's very much an alpha brainwave state. And when you can get into that theta brainwave state, which is where you can access your subconscious, that's where kids are often those 0 to 6, 7, sometimes 8, depending on the literature you're reading. And that's when they absorb everything around them as truth. They can't tell the difference always
Mm-hmm.
between sarcasm or if someone's opinion is true or not true. They take it all in as truth. So often as little kids, when our parents aren't loving us the way we want to, we just take it personally because that's how we interpret it. We didn't have anyone to interpret it for us. We're trying to do that with our own like 6 years of life skills. So I think it's so important. We can talk about how we go back and heal some of this stuff. Um, but yeah,
For
let's.
sure.
I'm
And
trying to think
like,
where we want to go next. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Comment on that.
no, yeah. So like you said, yeah, as children, we only see things from like an egocentric standpoint, which means like we internalize everything. You know, growing up with a father who's addicted to drugs, I knew intuitively, I knew that there was something wrong, but you internalize it as yourself because you don't know better. We don't have that empathy until we're like you said, age 8. Then we can start realizing, oh, okay. But as that primary age, if we are internalizing everything because that's all we know how to do, that's our belief system
Hmm.
and what we're
So
picking up.
it's incredible how this happens as children, and now as adults we can see this, and now we have the power, like you said, to reclaim our power, take it back. I know we've only been in this live for 8 minutes, but people are already asking us, how do we start to heal this stuff? So let's just jump into some of the tools, and as we jump into those tools, we can kind of dive deeper into some of the theory behind it all. But I'd love
For
for us to go
sure.
back and forth. So let's share some of your best tips for how to start healing these mother and father wounds.
Of course. So I first just want to start with you can heal them on your own, but it's also really nice to have support. I mean, I couldn't do my own parent wounds myself. I needed to go work with like a therapist or a coach as well. So sometimes that support system is really helpful because you're having someone else cheer you on and allow you to go deeper into yourself. Because, you know, with my father wound, I was scared to go in. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know what the heck is going to come up, and it can be terrifying. So I want you guys to know that you can do it by yourself, but also with a coach or a therapist. Highly recommend it. I mean, that's how I did it.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree too. There's some really tough stuff that comes out, so it's nice to have that support as you're going through it. But I think it's great. You can start the work definitely on your own. So how do
totally.
we start it? Let's get into
Yeah.
it.
So how we started is, I would say, is really having that awareness, realizing, okay, I didn't get my needs met. Because a lot of times we may think that our childhood was quote unquote normal or okay, just as a bypass product because that was all we've known, that was all we've seen. So really going back and really asking yourself, was this okay? Did I get my needs met? Did mom or dad treat me with love, that the way I deserved? Was I constantly having to be the parent for them? Did I have to abandon myself? So really asking yourself those detailed questions of getting curious of what your childhood looked like. And then after you have that awareness, then you can start going into what you didn't receive and the pain that was caused from it and presented from it. Because we can ignore this pain all we want, but it still resides in the body until we address it. And like they say, feel it to heal it. I'm a firm believer of that. We don't feel the emotions because emotions are energy in the body. And if we have all of this stuck energy, unprocessed trauma, unprocessed pain, all we're doing is stepping farther away from our authentic self. We're in survival
Mhm.
mode still. So the next step would be like really start feeling those emotions so you can be set free. And that will then in turn allow you to step into who you authentically are. Because truth be told, who we are today, if we haven't moved through the parent wounds, we are just that configuration of who our parents were, the belief systems, what they did give us or didn't give us, and just adult versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
not
So,
really who we are.
yeah, it's so true. And I think most people, like, I wouldn't want to say that everyone's like, that there's probably not a lot of people out there that are free from mother trauma wounds. They probably have some sort of even little versions or big versions of it. And most people can probably kind of pinpoint a few. There's a lot probably even under the surface that you don't even realize were there. But when you can start with the ones that you're aware of, like be an observer, think back to your childhood, that's a great jumping off point. And whether you're putting those in a journal to start, and then you can get curious, like asking yourself, like even remembering that time, how does it make you feel? Like just taking a deep breath in, and we can talk about breath
Mm-hmm.
work in a second, but sensing it in your body, like, do I feel it in my chest? Does my stomach start to sink? Do I feel like I can't breathe as much? Do I start racing, like my thoughts start racing? So just starting with some of those somatic things. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment too. So yeah,
Totally.
becoming aware of what happened in your past, starting to feel it in your body. So let's keep going on from that point.
Yeah, and then from there, it's the more we're feeling, the more we're clearing out, and then getting curious of like, what do I need? What do I need to give myself? And that's when I bring in with my clients that inner child work. I mean, inner child work is always there, I feel, but it's also like being that inner mother, that inner father that you needed. And whether you're a male, you can still be your inner mother. Whether you're a female, you can still be your inner father. You can be both. So really being that inner parent and creating that relationship with self, because a lot of times we look so much for what we didn't receive in childhood for those parents or external people or external things, whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, workaholism, social media validation. There's so many other things that we're looking externally versus within ourselves. And when we can learn to give that within ourselves, give that to our inner child, then all of that charge neutralizes, I feel, and it gets fainter and fainter the more we can step into what we needed most growing up.
Mm-hmm. So let's even step back. I'm going to go back even more because the big work, like you said, is when we can start to really do this work. So, what steps can we take? So, we've told those watching or those going to watch the replay, we really just got to look back. We got to feel it.
Yeah.
And then this is when the hard work starts because you really have to start feeling it and parenting yourself. So, I'm wondering what are some journal prompts even that we could start with, or some breathing exercises that you would suggest even just to get you started with starting the reparenting
Yeah.
process?
Thank you for asking that. No one is asking this question. Yeah. Um, so one of my breath works that I'm huge on, and I tell all my clients, and it's this doctor that I study, and he's amazing, Dr. Peter Levine. Um, Basically, it's the VU breath work, which is it re-regulates your vagus nerve. And
Let's
your
do
vagus
it.
nerve,
Can we do it
yeah,
right now?
totally. And your vagus nerve is basically a nerve that is connected to the base of your brain, the brain stem at the end, and it goes into all your internal organs. And a lot of times it also processes memories as well. And that's why it's really important that when you're dealing with anxiety or you want to go into somewhere deeper, you have to calm the nervous system, because right now your nervous system may be like, childhood, my past, what? I don't want to look back, because a lot of times people say, oh, just keep focusing on the future. No, I'm sorry. If you don't address the past,
Or
your
I hear
past
this
is
one.
going
I'm gonna say real quick. Just let it go. Just let it go. It sounds so
to.
easy. Just let it go. But you're not consciously. You can like, yeah, I'm over it. But subconsciously, that vagus nerve is telling you, I am not over it.
Totally, the vagus nerve knows everything, and just like the body, like as you know, the book, The Body Keeps Score. Your body knows everything. That's why I love that you like somatics too, because somatics is everything. It's feeling those. You can talk. I was in talk therapy and we will do the breath, by the way, if anyone is listening. Um, I was in therapy from age 3 up until about 2 years ago, and I mean, I was with all different therapists too, and we never got to the bottom line of what was going on until I spent over $6,000 for a week to get the help I needed.
Yeah, I hear you. I have so many women come to me. They've been in years of therapy. They make some progress, but they're just
Totally.
consciously talking all the time, and it takes so long to reprogram our beliefs and our inner child wounds when we have to just talk about it and talk about it and try to tell yourself, I am loved, I am good enough, I am smart, I am all these things. But
It's
if you can
like
go into it and feel it in your body and just release it, get it out of your tissues, that's where the magic happens. And that's what I
issues
love
are in the
talking to people like you.
tissues. Someone told me that. But all right. So the VU breath is basically, it resets the vagus nerve. So I've had clients reach out to me, and not even clients, people will DM me and say, I've been having anxiety for 2 hours and I don't know what to do. And I told them this and they're like, wow, I never knew that. So basically it restarts the nervous system. If you feel like you're out of balance or you feel ungrounded, this is another great grounding technique and feeling safe in the body. Because a lot of times when we experience trauma, we don't feel safe. So what you want to do is put one hand on the vagus nerve, which is just above your chest area, and the other on your stomach, lower stomach. And what you want to do is you want to start taking a deep breath in. And with your inhale, you want to VOO, so VOOO. You want to say the VOO while vibrating your lips, but also feeling the vibration within your stomach. And we will do it 3 times, and we'll see how we feel.
Okay.
All right, so taking a deep breath in. Voo. And just feeling that vibration in the stomach all the way. A deep exhale. And then just doing it again. Voo. And one last time.
Oh, I love that. That is so
Feels so
beautiful.
good.
Doesn't it? That is magic. It really is. And that's such a simple tool, right? Versus having to talk about how you feel. I feel so anxious. This is the thought that's spiraling out of control. And then just takes you into it. But that takes you out of it. That takes you out of the
It really
pain.
does.
Yeah, it moves it. It's
I
so
love it.
important. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just said I love it. I like live by it. If I feel ungrounded or I'm going to do like a speaking event or something, I'm like, just to like ground in and just let go and just reset.
Yeah, it's so important. I like the piece of touching too. Often where like if you're taking a breath in and you can sense like often just even taking a breath in right now and just seeing, does my breath get constricted anywhere? Do I feel any tension? Like if I'm breathing in through my nose all the way down to my belly, does that breath get stuck, hung up, feel tense anywhere? And often people find it in their chest. They might feel it in their throat or sometimes in their abdomen. And just sensing where is that and then placing your hand on it and breathing into that area will often loosen it too. So it's just like, it's such a simple tool. Like they always say, your breath is your foundation. And oh, I have to breathe. Like, but it's so important to breathe, and often that's an overlooked strategy. It's often going to the talking about how you feel, which is important too. It has its place, but breath will really center you and just bring you back and takes you out of your head and into your body, which is where you're storing so much of this.
Yes, yes. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of like breath work. I do somatic release breath work with my clients, and I've helped them work through so much. Sometimes it's sexual trauma, sometimes it's just feeling into those emotions that have been suppressed. Breath will guide you into things that need to be released in the unknown territories of your body that you never knew needed to be processed.
Oh, it's so true. And we'll go back to inner child in a second, but sometimes when you do this breath work, you will have some pretty wild experiences. If you're open to it, I don't know if you felt this too, but you'll actually feel things leave your body. Like you'll just, whether it's just the energy leaving or sometimes you feel colors or shape, like different things. I had a client once who had rocks coming out of her throat. She's like, what is going on here?
That's beautiful. I
Yeah,
love
it's pretty
that.
magical stuff when you really get into it and you like surrender to it. It's so powerful. Okay, I want to ask you about, is this generational, like mother father wounds? Can I be passing this on to my kids? Have my parents picked it up from their parents and it's still being passed on to me? And how we stop this cycle, like we said, we want to stop this cycle, but is it passed on from generation to generation?
Yeah. So I want to say this is all personal preference for anyone who's listening. So my personal like opinion of that is I feel it absolutely is, because a lot of times we're just doing, a lot of times our parents are doing what they were shown, whether it was right or wrong. That was their way, that their parent, their mother, their father showed what to do with emotions. Maybe it's not a speak of emotions. So they're telling their child now, don't speak of it, you're fine, just toughen up. you're okay. Or maybe it's vice versa. They showed it with physical abuse or emotional abuse because that was what they were shown. And I've really looked into that. And sometimes I don't want to get into this whole addiction thing, but I will say I've had many conversations lately with sisters of mine about addiction and like having lost a father to addiction. I know my father's dad was not in his life. And I know a lot of times we get into addiction because I have struggled with addiction, not with drugs, but with other things. And that's a coping mechanism due to not feeling loved the way we needed. So I'm a firm believer. And then same on my mother's side. My mother had a father wound. My mother had a mother wound. So it is breaking generational cycles, this, because we are just oftentimes we're just repeating what our ancestors were showing us, vice versa, until we realize this is not okay. This is not healthy. This is not supporting me in any way. How can I break it? So that's where I'm at. I would love to hear your point of view.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I think, like
Yeah.
you said, we're a sponge from ages like 0 to 6, 7, 8. And if you're picking that up as a child, your parents did the same, picked it up. Your grandparents probably picked it up too. It's the sponge just keeps absorbing the same information until you
Mhm.
decide to actually go back and realize, you know what, that belief doesn't make sense to me. I am a good decision maker, or I am smart. I'm not a fool. I'm not stupid. I don't always pick the wrong
Yes.
man. Like when you can get into these beliefs and realize, you know what, I don't want that to be my story anymore. I don't want to think that we don't have enough money. We'll never have enough money. I can't have that good job. When you can get that out of you, then, and some of that's inner child too, but it can come from wounds as well, that you have this low self-esteem, low confidence. So when you can decide, I don't want to be that anymore. Like I always say, if you have it within you, like if you want to do something, you want to be something, it sounds so cliche. We tell our kids it all the time. You can have whatever you want, but when we become adults, all of a sudden dreams don't matter anymore, and you have to just like that's just the way it has to be. But when
Yeah.
you can realize that if you have that dream within you, it's yours to have. You just have to have the right beliefs about yourself. You need to show universe, God, whatever you believe in, that you're worthy of it, that you know what, I'm going to clear out these blocks and create the space for what I really want to come in so I can live that best life. It all sounds so cheesy, but it's actually like science. It's rooted in like the universal laws, and it's rooted in neuroscience and psychology. Like it's the truth.
I totally agree. And when we can work through these wounds, like I'm telling all of you who are listening right now, who are going to listen, I promise you, when you can work through these wounds, create that inner child relationship, you will attract the relationships, opportunities. I mean, I have clients that even have businesses and they do even better in their businesses because they're looking from a whole different lens and not just allowing projections to dictate their life. That is when the true like freedom and liberation comes in, and like reclaiming your power, realizing that you are whole and complete with or without your parents. And I know that can sound harsh, but the truth is my way of coaching isn't let's like hate on our parents. It's let's heal the relationship that we have with ourselves to our parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I have clients before they work with me, they ask, do I have to talk to my mom? Do I have to talk to my dad to heal it? No, absolutely not. It's what the relationship and programming that was ingrained by you in regards to your parents. So you can do this work even if you had a parent who passed away, a parent who was never in your life, a parent who's physically in your life but emotionally absent, or even a parent that you had to cut off due to them not respecting your boundaries or them being too toxic. So I'm feeling called to just share that with whoever's listening to let you know that you can still heal from this even without having a relationship with them still.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you that question because I think it is really important that you don't have to talk to them to heal this stuff. It is great though if you can have that conversation and they're open to it, like they are
If they're
approachable.
open.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't bring it up unless they are, because you know you're not going to get anywhere with it. But often we want to talk to them because we want an apology or we want forgiveness or we want something. But then I always turn it on you. Like, are you forgiving yourself for that sometimes? Like sometimes you've done things in the past and you're like, you know what? I'm still holding shame or guilt for that. It's not really that you need an apology from someone else. You need to apologize to yourself, or not apologize to yourself, but you need to forgive yourself. You're doing the best you could with what you knew at that time. So a lot of times when we feel a certain way, we want something from someone else, we actually have to give it to ourselves, whether it's love, whether it's lack of judgment. Yeah, we have to give it to ourselves.
Right. It's moving through that pain, connecting that relationship with self, where you can then create that true body, mind, body, soul alignment. You know, healing through these wounds, my intuition is freakishly on point, to the point that I'm like, why do I need to know this right now?
Oh, I know. It's really cool when you can, yeah, now we're on a different topic, but when you can like get your like spidey senses or your intuition or those little pings, downloads, so that they're like loud and you're like, you know what? I need to call this person because I just thought of them. I have one still in my mind. I thought of a friend this morning and I'm like, I need to text her. Like she just popped into my mind. I need to follow up because whenever you like learn to like, trust your intuition now, you don't second guess yourself anymore. You're like, there's a reason this is happening. There's a reason this is coming into my life. I have to move through these things.
Right.
But anyway, I want to get back to inner child wounds. Is
Yeah.
there, what was I going to ask you? Is there a difference typically between the mother wound and the father wound?
Beautiful, beautiful question. I've noticed, so I predominantly started with father wound, like first and foremost, but then I realized so many of my clients were like, well, you're also helping me with my mother wound. And I didn't realize that there's so much similarities. Some differences, but some similarities. You know, I see a lot of mother wounds where the child had to be the parent for the mother, or take on the mother's emotions, or not feel their emotions because they needed to make sure mom was okay. So they constantly abandon themselves. Whereas in the father wound, it's more so sometimes the dad wasn't there, the dad was always working, dad just wasn't there emotionally. And, you know, I like to say as a women, um, the father is our first love, where the mother is our first caretaker, our first nurturer. And that goes for men too. Same thing. Like for men, their father was supposed to be that man that shows them how the masculinity, the masculine energy, where their mother is supposed to caretake. So to answer your question, I see a lot of similarities, and the healing work is very similar. But I do notice some distinguishes when it comes to daughters growing up with a narcissistic mother, or daughters growing up with a father who wasn't there.
Interesting. Okay, how does this stuff, like we've alluded to it, but let's go a little bit more deep in regards to careers and romantic relationships. How do these
Mm-hmm.
wounds show up there? And maybe we won't recognize them at that point. Like we've talked about the ones that are obvious. Like you can look back on your past and be like, my dad wasn't present, or my mom was looking. Yeah, we can go there and we can see that. But for the ones that we can't see, how does it kind of manifest and show up in romantic relationships and careers?
Yeah, of course. So, in relationships, first and foremost, I feel you may find yourself being completely avoidant of relationships altogether, which I do see as well. Not as common, but I do see it, which is complete disassociation from relationships altogether, because mom or dad couldn't be there. So, how can I trust anyone else? Screw that. I'm not going to get my heart hurt. I'm not going to feel those emotions that I felt growing up again. So, you can be very resistant to relationships altogether. And if you are someone who does go into relationships, you may constantly find yourself attracting emotionally unavailable men. You may constantly find yourself people pleasing. So in a relationship, you allow your partner to make all the decisions, where even if you have something you want to say, instead you just shut down and you let them. So you don't have your own voice. I would say when it comes to business, dims you because you feel like you will self-sabotage good things. If you didn't receive good things growing up, or you didn't feel you were deserving because you had a parent that was very emotionally abusive to you and told you that you weren't shit and that you are not going to do anything great in life, you'll always have those voices until we reprogram. So when you're in business, you may always have that little voice, their inner critic, in the back of your mind that is going to cause you to self-sabotage good things. And that also happens with relationships. You know, when I used to even be open to a good guy, now I'm open and receptive. But before, when I was in my trauma, when I met a good guy, I was like, yeah, no, thank you. Like, boring, so boring, because I was so used to chaos and I needed dysfunction in my life to feel like I was at home, when in reality, at home was not healthy. So I
Mm-hmm.
can say also, you can self-sabotage good things. Even if you are with a good partner, you may constantly look for fights. You may constantly feel not good enough, even if they tell you you're good enough. So you're just going to eventually self-sabotage and push all of those people who do care about you away as well.
Mm-hmm. another piece of this too, you can have like stepfather, stepmother wounds, like caregiver wounds. Like, could you even say like we have grandparent wounds? Like, depending on like who those primary caregivers were in your life.
Yes.
I
Paternal,
think we can,
maternal.
yeah, we can differentiate that too, because I have some clients like the stepdad was just horrific to her, like always putting her down and saying horrible things to her, like, you don't need that ice cream, you're already fat enough, like things like that, that just
Mm.
destroyed her self-esteem. So we can look back and see that those people too. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I love that. I love that point of view because it's
Yes.
true, you know, and some people have great step parents, but at the same time, it's who was that? I also think who is that birth parent? Because if your stepdad was great and your real dad wasn't, there's still that wounding with the real dad or real mom.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
thank you for pointing that out because that's something I don't discuss that much. So, yeah,
It might
even if you have
confuse things
step
a bit.
parents. What was
Yeah.
that?
Oh, it could confuse things a little bit because, yeah, it's just a lot of it's just inner child, and whether we want to differentiate it as like specific mother, father. Do you usually say it's biological? Is that definitely through your training? Would you say
With the
it's
work that
biological?
I've done, yes, but it makes complete sense where if you had a stepfather who was, I like to say it's paternal or maternal. So whoever that mother or male figure was, like you said, the caregiver, whether it was
Yeah.
grandparents, because a lot of my clients do end up having grandparent wounds as well if their grandparents were the one that had to caretake because their parents couldn't show up for them,
Yeah. Well, this
which
has
is
been great.
double wounds. Joy.
I know so many ways. But you know what? Once you start the work, you get addicted to it. Like the first few layers of peeling back this stuff and getting into it are quite painful. But once I finally you get some of those major ones out of the way, which are usually ones that come up first, you kind of get addicted to the work. You get so curious, being like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I so resentful right now? Why am I feeling anger having this conversation with my partner? In the moment, of course, you're kind of angry, but you can look back and be like, what is this telling me? I want to dig into it. So it can be really fun once you start the process. Absolutely.
Exactly. And I've also realized that when we haven't processed these emotions with in regards to our parents, whether it's sadness, anger, any of that, it comes out in, like I told you in the beginning, it comes out in all of everything we do. Our relationships. You know, I used to be so triggered so quickly and enraged where if my partner did something wrong, I would my one of my exes told me I was like a bull in a china shop. I get it because I had zero, there was no meter. It was zero or I'm going to flip out. So I
Yeah.
constantly was projecting that anger that I had towards my father, um, and maybe a little towards my mother, probably, that I didn't know, I didn't address. So it was just coming out in all of these ways where the littlest things would just tick me the frig off. And I'd just be like, are you kidding me? And I knew I didn't have to get that angry over it, but it's so much displaced anger that we haven't processed. So that's another reason why it's really important to heal, guys. Because if not, you're projecting all of your unprocessed wounds to all of those people you love or potential people.
And your kids, if you have kids out there, it gets
Yes.
projected onto them too, which then creates more child parent wounds, like mother father wounds. Oh,
Thanks. That's a huge important. Yeah, that is very important. Your
yeah.
kids, especially, because they're looking and learning from you. And I know a lot of people get triggered at my content sometimes because it's true. It's we need to heal so our parents or so our children don't have to do the work. And if we are already parents, that's okay. But it's being that catalyst of we're doing the work so they can see that change.
Mhm. I had a big aha moment when my 8-year-old said to me, Mom, you're projecting your anger onto me. Isn't that amazing? I was just like, I love you. You're so right.
That's so.
I was upset about my computer. I hadn't been able to send an email and it just died. And then we had to get going and I was like rushing them, trying to get them out the house. And he actually stopped me. Mom, you're projecting your anger on me. I'm
I
like,
love that.
like
Thanks for
you can teach your
reminding
kids
us.
these tools, like they become so intuitive to their own emotions and how they feel, and they understand how to put up boundaries. Be like, that's not my energy, that's yours, and they feel safe enough, right? Like they don't like get like small in a shell. You have the confidence to be able to tell me that. Like it's just amazing what you can do for future generations.
Ah, I love that. That makes me, yeah, I cannot wait to have kids for that reason.
Yeah. Well,
To be able
Janelle,
to do that. Yeah.
well, Janelle, it's been amazing chatting with you. Do you help
It
men, women, and how can, yeah, tell me a little bit about how people can find you.
absolutely. So I first started with only coaching women, but now I opened up to men. I do work with men at the moment. I have two male clients that I'm working with. So I'm based out of Sedona, Arizona. So I do have the option where clients can fly to me. I have had clients in the past fly to me and do like a 3-day intensive, or I do in-person work in general if you're in the Sedona area or traveling into the Sedona area. But if not, I do a lot of online. A lot of my clients I work with in different countries. I have clients in Amsterdam. I have clients in Canada. I have clients everywhere. So basically, we can get the work done to heal. You can find me at the top where you can click my name. You can send me a follow. I am booking out until July right now. If you do live in the area, we can probably accommodate something, but I get pretty booked out fairly quickly, which is I'm so grateful for. And then I also am hosting a women's retreat in September, which I only have 2 spots left as well. I haven't really promoted it much. A lot of my past clients will be there, but I am opening it to the public as well for those who haven't worked with me yet.
Amazing. I saw that. I'm like, that looks amazing. So anyway, it's been so great. It's so great having you here. And if any of your viewers want to get a hold of me, again, just go to Instagram. I have that great little guide, 3 ways to save a marriage. I really help women save a marriage when their partners are really like actively not involved. And step 4, I don't even touch the marriage until step 4. We work on you for step 1, 2, 3 to get you to a super awesome place without any of this inner child shadow stuff happening in you, so that you can really make a decision whether you're to stay or go in a marriage. So I just love this inner child work. It really is phenomenal. It's life-changing, and I think it's the foundation for really getting change and getting change fast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure, and I'm so glad we are able to do this because I think this needs to be more talked about more.
I agree. Yeah, you did an amazing job. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, love. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, bye everyone.